Do you wake up in the morning not feeling refreshed, or perhaps you're not actually sleeping that well at all? Maybe you've got extra pounds that you're finding it really hard to shift. You've got aches and pains in your body, perhaps like me, you've suffered with high blood pressure. You've got all of these things going on and you don't know what to do to make yourself better. You know you don't feel like yourself anymore. It's affecting your lifestyle. Believe me, I know exactly how you feel because I was there. In today's video, I'm talking to Dr Rebecca Hiscutt, who is the practice manager at Combe Grove, the UK's first metabolic health centre. And if you've got any of these issues, you'll want to watch this video because Rebecca is giving us all of her tips and information about what you can do to start on your own health journey. We're going to talk about some of the changes that you can make that will improve your health. This is life-changing. For me, it really has been life-changing. It's powerful stuff. So make sure that you watch the video right through to the end to get all of the information that Rebecca's got for you. Now, I know that perhaps the retreat isn't for everybody, but there are other resources which she's going to offer as well. So without further ado, let's get into this information because I know you're going to find something in here that is going to be so useful to you. So I'm here with Rebecca, you're the practice manager, aren't you? So do you want to give us a little bit about your background, how you came to be at Combe Grove and how you went about putting these programmes together?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a registered dietitian. So to do that you do your training and spend time in the NHS. So since then I've worked both in NHS, privately, for charities, and also a lot of time in research. So I've worked on big trials where we've compared different diet programs and then taken measures throughout. And so that's really what's led me to Combe Grove, because it's bringing together all of those elements. It's bringing together the science, looking at what we know, what's the latest evidence in nutrition, in metabolic health, and then it's combining that with making it very practical and using it. What are people going to do with that on their plates, in the supermarket? So bringing it to life, basically.
On a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, yeah, absolutely. It's translating it. So that's what's so important to me, and that's why I was so drawn to Combe Grove. And so we started our first programs back in the autumn of 2022. We did our pilot programs, and then after we'd done those, we started our first programs in the beginning of 2023. So I joined before we launched any of those programs. I've been very fortunate to be involved in the development of those programs, and obviously bring in my metabolic health and research knowledge to make sure what we're setting up is robust. So we're bringing information that is the latest metabolic health information, and that we are taking measurements that people can use in their own journey, but also those measurements we can use to build and improve the knowledge of metabolic health. And that's really important to us. So Combe Grove is part of a charitable organisation, and one of our objectives is to improve knowledge of metabolic health. And so we intend to do that through what we're learning.
Because it's so needed, isn't it?
It's so needed.
There's so many misconceptions out there about the way that we eat and...
Absolutely, and it's showing what is really happening to those those markers of your health, and learning where are the difficult points, where does it get difficult for people, when do these things really start shifting, and you're learning more and more about insulin resistance and linking them to each of these 5 routes. And been lucky enough, to work alongside, other leading doctors and other health professionals in metabolic health in guiding and improving our program.
So I guess during that time, views on diet and health have changed quite a lot, haven't they? So give us a little bit of background about Combe Grove and the metabolic health, because I think we sort of think about diet and losing weight, but this is much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's so important. I think for so long we have looked at almost these external measures and looked at things like weight, BMI, this is what people have looked at. But by going inside and by getting this window into our health, we can really get to the root of our health and how we are. And by doing that, by getting to the root, one of the happy benefits for a lot of people is that it does lead to weight loss, because what you're doing is you're putting your body in a place of calm, and everything is easier, all your hormones are balanced, and that naturally means that your place is in a place of fat burning rather than fat storage. But that's just one tiny element of what's going on. What we're really focusing on are those crucial markers of metabolic health, because these are the ones which will determine how long and how healthy you live, your health span. And that's what we want to help people to do, to live a life without limits for as long as possible, and to be able to enjoy every day, because their well-being, their energy, their sleep is so good, and they've got this reassurance that they know that internally their physiological measures are also improving and their health is improving.
I think that's probably what attracted me to Combe Grove, because I'd already lost weight about it's about 18 months ago now. I knew that I needed to lose weight. I was about 3 stone overweight. I didn't feel good. I didn't have any energy. And so the weight loss started, but and that was okay. But there were all the other things. I wasn't sleeping well. I had high blood pressure. The doctor said I had high cholesterol. And so I knew it wasn't just about losing weight. And then turning 60 last year, I started to think, I want more energy. I want to do more. I don't want to get to the point where perhaps in 5 or 10 years' time, I'm immobile. And so I read about Combe Grove and started to realise that it wasn't just about losing weight. It was those other, you said about metabolic markers. So what are the other markers that you look at?
So some of the crucial metabolic markers, so one of the things we look at is blood pressure, and this is one of the early markers that you mentioned as well. And this is one of the first things people realise, because it's something that's very commonly done.
Yes.
You go to the GP, they very often check your blood pressure, or at home. And it's one of the first signs often that metabolic health is becoming unbalanced. So that's a really clear one. Blood glucose levels is another very common one, and again, that's something that gets measured. However, blood glucose levels, that's almost when your metabolic health is deteriorating for quite a while, so it's not one of the early signs, because your body is very good at maintaining this balance, and it will do it for as long as it possibly can. And it will keep blood glucose levels stable by increasing your insulin. When it can't do that anymore, that's when blood glucose levels that you measure rise, and that's when people see it. So if that happens and we can help people, fantastic, we can bring blood glucose levels down. But if we can help people even before those early signs, that's amazing, because then they're going to benefit from improved health and all the signs that they feel, as well as internal health for many years before. So we're really keen to sort of promote awareness and help people know these early signs. Like I say, blood pressure is one of them. Even before that, our body is trying to let us know. It's telling us, if we're listening, it's letting us know that it's not quite right, it's not quite balanced, and it would like us to do something. So sleep is a really common one, if we're having sleep challenges. If we're finding everyday stresses more difficult, we're not sort of bouncing back, they have more of an impact, that's another one. If we're feeling tired a lot of the time, we all feel tired, but normally, you have a day or two you feel more tired, or you go through a more tired period and then you're okay.
Yeah.
If you wake up in the morning and you don't feel restored, if you have aches and pains that aren't just occasional or injuries and heal, but they're carrying on. All of these are those early signs that your body is just going into that unbalanced mode and finding things harder. Sometimes weight can be one of them. So if you're finding your waist circumference or you're feeling less lean than you were, again, that can be a sign that your body is just struggling again and sort of pushing into that fat storage mode. Very often people will say, I'm doing all the same things I used to, but I just don't feel like me anymore.
It's all getting harder.
It's all getting harder, and they're not understanding why, because nothing has changed, and it's because their body has been whispering these little things. It's been whispering, your knee is hurting, giving you jip more often. Your mood is lower, you're feeling more anxious. Different things for different people, but it's been whispering, and we're so busy that we just don't necessarily hear it. And it's not until it starts shouting, and all these things get more, and like you said, it gets to the point where you're like, do you know what, I need to do something about this, and I don't want to accept this. And we don't have to accept it. That's the wonderful thing. We don't have to accept that we have deteriorating health and deteriorating energy and deteriorating mobility. We can turn that around, and that's what it's about.
But I think one of the things that is so hard is the first thing you would think is something doesn't feel right, I want to go and see my doctor. And we all know it can be really hard to get A, an appointment with the doctor, and B, they don't have the time to talk to you about these things. You might get your 5-minute appointment, which doesn't really solve anything, or it might be, like with me, they wanted to put me on statins, and I said, no, I don't want that. So it's really hard to know where to start making these changes. So what can we do?
Yeah, it's a really good point, isn't it, about that. Who do you go to?
Yeah.
Who do you talk to about these things? And that's absolutely something we find. So when we're talking to people, they've said that they've been on this journey, often for a long time on their own, and they're sort of trying to piece things together, and they're trying to look at themselves as a whole as well, and put together why all these things are happening. And it's really challenging. It's really challenging for a GP to address all those things in the time they have. So one of the things that we are really passionate about doing at Combe Grove is having our webinars. So we run our webinars regularly because then we can share about metabolic health and the 5 routes and really actionable tools that people can put in place today, tomorrow, what they can do. Because I think one of the things is that, when you're starting to not feel as good, your energy is diving, you can always lose belief that you could change this,
yes.
That you can do anything about it.
It's a big hurdle to climb, isn't it?
It's a big hurdle, and your body is fighting, you're overwhelmed, you're not feeling great, you didn't have a good night's sleep, your back's hurting so you haven't been out for a walk. All of these things mount up. So by sharing, some really simple tips that someone can do, and then they have the confidence that, oh my goodness, I did that today, I did that for myself, and then they keep doing it, and then within a day or two, like, do you know what, I feel a bit different, and then that just, there's a little domino effect, something else.
Those little steps that just build on each other.
Exactly, but it's having information that you feel really confident about, it's being really clear about what you can do, and I think it's about sort of knowing, where you can go to get that information.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We will put a link in the description box for the webinars as well, because as you said, you do run them regularly.
They are. We're doing them twice a week now.
Brilliant.
So much demand.
Brilliant. And do you find that this is an age-related thing as well?
It's a really interesting question. I think it's changing. So there would have been, not very long ago, it would have been that GPs, so they would have had people coming in to see them who were in their 60s, 70s, who were showing signs of poor metabolic health, so that presenting with type 2 diabetes. Now that's shifting, so GPs are seeing people earlier and earlier, so in their 40s and their 30s and much younger. So our metabolic health does tend to decline with age. That's very natural, but we can control that, and we can just be empowered to take control of what happens. But because of the environment we live in now, it's happening earlier and earlier to people. And so that's another thing, is letting people know early on. If they know early on that these are the signs of poor metabolic health, then they can use these tools throughout their whole lifetime. And what's fascinating is when you sort of talk to somebody who is, now very aware of these signs and symptoms that are coming up, if you look back, you'll see there were early signs. So, for example, pregnant women might have had gestational diabetes, and that was a sign that they may develop pre-diabetes later on, or even going back further back, for example, for puberty, which is another time when we're naturally more insulin resistant, and so you can sort of trace back what's happening through a lifetime. So if we could give people this information and tools at the beginning of their lifetime, it would be really powerful.
So good for our daughters as well to start now.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. Spreading the word. Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned there about insulin resistance. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and what the effects of it are?
This is really important because insulin resistance basically underpins poor metabolic health. So insulin resistance is basically when our body stops responding as efficiently to the hormone insulin. So insulin is a really important hormone with multiple roles throughout the body. And what can happen over time is that our body just isn't utilising it in the best way it can. So let me give you an example. What happens is we'll have something to eat, and that food will get broken down, our blood glucose levels will rise. Our pancreas produces insulin, that's released, and its job is to take this glucose out of our bloodstream and take it into our cells. When it's in our cells, that's where it can do what it needs to do. So it can either be used for energy or stored for later on. So that all works perfectly. Now, over time, what can happen is that our blood glucose levels are either rising more often or they're higher for longer. So this could be because food is available so often. So we're eating more often. So where blood glucose levels go up, we might just grab a quick snack, blood glucose levels go up, and we're eating many times during the day. What can also happen is because of the food that's available now, and it's high in refined carbohydrates, blood glucose levels are going up more. So it's more of an extreme. And then if you add in things like stress, sleep, etc., changes in movement, all this means that our blood glucose levels are, they're higher than our body would like. So what happens is our blood glucose levels will rise. Now our body's struggling a little bit. So instead of when insulin is being released, insulin taking this easily into our cells are like, we've got enough glucose kicking around and we're struggling, you're not coming in here. Well, our body has to bring our blood glucose levels down because its most important job is maintaining balance. So what it does, it produces more insulin. So we've got 2 lots of insulin. And then, together, that's enough. It can take glucose out of our bloodstream. But now our insulin levels are high. Now, insulin is really important, it's critical, but too much of anything is not a good idea. So when insulin levels are higher, this can start to impact on our health. One of the things it does is it's a growth hormone. So what it does is it puts our body in a place of growth. So when we've got high insulin levels, we will store fat, for example, which is one of the things it does. And over time, this just carries on. So we're producing more insulin, glucose levels are going down, but eventually, even though we're producing more insulin, it can't take all that glucose out and into our cells. So then our glucose levels start to rise when we measure them. And this is when we might start to see pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. So that's what I'm saying about how it is starting a lot earlier. Now, one of the things that it would be fantastic to do is to measure insulin levels, because then you're seeing what's happening much further on. So that's something we're looking into doing at Combe Grove. It's something that I think is really interesting. But until then, what we can do is look at these early signs I was mentioning earlier.
So how can we keep our insulin levels balanced? What are the easiest things that we can do to do that? I know that you said about snacking, so is that why restricting the time window that you eat in makes a difference to that?
Yeah, it can do. So the research for using intermittent fasting and specifically time-restricted eating, which we do at Combe Grove, is strongest around insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So one of the things I love about it is that it makes people very mindful about when they're eating. And I think when we eat is so crucial. So if we reduce our eating window, what we're doing is we're just having some time where our blood glucose levels can come down, when our insulin levels can come down, and when our body can switch into this repair mode instead of always being in an on mode and hormones being higher. So it can be really effective. If you stop eating an hour earlier in the evening, you've got this extra hour overnight where your blood glucose levels and insulin levels can come down, and over time that can help reduce insulin resistance. The other really effective thing about doing that is we naturally become more insulin resistant over the course of a day. So what we eat at 8 p.m. will have a different impact on us to what we eat at 8 a.m.
That's really interesting.
It's fascinating. So our bodies change because our bodies are designed to do different things at different parts of the day. But how we live now, we try and do everything for 24 hours a day.
Yeah. I like what you said about it being more mindful as well, because I know for me, ever since I visited here, now I have my 2 meals a day. I have my brunch and I have my evening meal. And previously, I used to get up in the morning and it's breakfast, I have to have breakfast, I have to have lunch. And I didn't really think about it very much, whereas now, I love my brunch and I so look forward to it and I prepare it all really nicely, and I sit down and I thoroughly enjoy that meal rather than thinking it's breakfast and you just eat and it's done. It's another chore. Whereas this makes it something to actually enjoy preparing and eating, and afterwards thinking, I thoroughly enjoyed that meal.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're getting so much enjoyment from it, and I think that is so important. Very often when people start their journey and come here, food has become quite stressful.
Yes.
Because they have to, it's another chore to think about what you're going to eat, to think about all the preparation. People haven't got time, they've got bored of what they're eating, and when they are eating, it's the exact opposite of your experience. So it's I'm going to quickly have lunch before I carry on and send some emails, I've got a million things to do, and eat your lunch, and oh my goodness, I don't even remember what I've eaten. Whereas people generally really look forward to their meals and love eating, but then they've missed it. They've missed their meal entirely. And the problem with that is that it's very important for our brain to recognise that we've eaten, because it needs that for satisfaction. If we don't get that satisfaction, then we are going to keep looking for it. And then we're going to be thinking, oh, what can I have? Because our brain wasn't aware of what we were eating.
Yeah.
So being mindful, really enjoying it, getting that joy is so important. And yeah, much better to sort of eat less often and relish every single mouthful.
I think one of the things I was quite concerned about before I came to stay here was, what am I going to be eating? Am I going to be hungry? And I have to say, literally from the first day, all of us on the group were completely mind blown. This food is amazing. Didn't feel hungry because actually some of us were eating more than we had been eating. So talk to us a little bit about the having this balanced meal as far as carbohydrates and protein, and what we should be thinking about eating and perhaps what we should be eating less of.
Yeah, absolutely. So our main focus here is on real whole foods. If we're giving our body those, then we're using every opportunity to give it the ingredients it needs to thrive. So that's our main focus. And if we start with that, that sort of naturally looks after quite a lot of other things. And then we talk about protein. So we're prioritising protein, because protein can be so helpful for what we're trying to create. So it helps to balance our blood sugar levels, and it's incredibly good for helping reduce cravings and hunger. We know that if we eat more protein at the first meal of the day, that's been shown to reduce cravings right through to the evening. That's how powerful it is. Protein is also so important for maintaining or building our muscle mass, and our muscle is linked to our longevity. Our muscle is really good for soaking up our blood glucose. So taking the sugar from our blood and soaking it up to the muscle. So again, it's going to help with insulin resistance. So protein is really important. That's the first thing. And very often people aren't eating enough protein.
Yeah.
For you?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Whereas now, I have 2 eggs every morning, or for my brunch. I do eat meat, so we either have meat or fish in the evening. And I eat nuts, which I hadn't really done before I came here, so I have my yogurt with my nuts on it. So yes, I eat a lot more protein than I did before.
It really helps, doesn't it?
Yes.
It really helps. And then what you're doing is you're not thinking about what not to eat, you're thinking about what to eat.
Yes.
It's changing your mindset as well to a really positive way. Okay, so real foods, prioritising protein, and then really enjoying all the non-starchy vegetables. So filling up your plate with those beautiful, abundant, diverse vegetables that are packed full of phytonutrients and fibre. So we talk to people about having more than half your plate with those. And examples are, at the moment, there's lots of beautiful lettuces and rocket and mustard leaves all growing up in the kitchen garden. So those sorts of things on your plate. Or courgettes or broccoli, all of those sorts of things that grow above the ground. So make the most of those. And then there's carbohydrates and fats, and we talk about personalising those with each and every person. So that varies a little bit. But for most people, reducing your carbohydrate is going to be really helpful for balancing your metabolic health. The average carbohydrate intake for people in the UK is in excess of 250 grams a day, and probably for a lot of people, much more than that. And a low carbohydrate diet is considered to be 130 grams of carbohydrate or less.
Pretty much half.
Pretty much half, yeah, absolutely. And you can do that without it being drastic. It doesn't need to be a very low carbohydrate diet. You can just do it by swapping some of those more processed snacks and foods and swapping them to real whole foods. That can be pretty undramatic, and for a lot of people, they'll get real benefit from doing that. For some of our other clients who maybe their metabolic health is further along, maybe they really want to push their health goals, then they might decide to reduce their carbohydrate further. It's about what each person needs at that point in time. So that's carbohydrate, and then fat. And again, fat you personalise as well, but I think one of the big things with fat here is helping demystify and for people not to be scared of fat.
Because it has such a bad rap, doesn't it? And I now do have full fat milk, full fat yogurt, I eat butter, but I don't eat any of the sort of nasty oils or anything. I use olive oil, but other than that, I don't really worry too much about fat now.
And it's working for you.
Yes, it is. But I think so many people think you have to have low fat, and actually a lot of low fat has a lot of sugar as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it for so many years that's what people were told, and we obviously pick things up, don't we, throughout our lifetime, and it's one of the things that people have really held on to.
The Rosemary Conley diet.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the studies I worked on a long time ago.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. But it's really, helping people feel confident about what they can eat.
Yes.
So what we focus on here is natural fats. So enjoy and make use of fat when it's in its natural form. So having, for example, olive oil, or having some fish or meat with some fat on it, or having some cheese is entirely different from having a processed snack that's full of refined oils, for example. So focus on natural fats, and you'll find that, again, they provide huge satiety and satisfaction. That little bit of richness makes such difference, and your enjoyment of food. And they're so crucial. They're so crucial. They're a huge part of the composition of our brain, of our hormones. They make a massive difference to your health and well-being as well.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast a little while ago about Patrick Holford was talking about dementia, and he was saying you need cholesterol and fat for your brain. And cholesterol is the other one that I want to ask you about, because that's something that a lot of people worry about, but it's not that actual cholesterol number that you need to be concerned about, is it?
Yeah, this is something else that is really commonly asked. And so at Combe Grove, we're focusing on markers of metabolic health. And the most important markers for metabolic health are the things I've talked about, but in terms of bloods, what we're looking at is HbA1c, and we also look at fasting glucose, but HbA1c is great because it's that average marker over 3 months of what your blood glucose levels are doing. And then we look at triglyceride to HDL ratio. Now, looking at these things together with the other markers, we're really getting an idea of metabolic health rather than looking at one single figure on its own. Looking at one single figure on its own, such as total cholesterol, for example, is not telling you how that cholesterol is behaving, whether it's working efficiently in your body. It's not telling you whether your cholesterol is small dense particles or larger particles. And this is all really important because it's those things that impact whether the cholesterol is going to do damage in your body.
Okay.
So that's why we look at triglyceride to HDL ratio, because this gives us an indication of what your cholesterol is composed of and how it's behaving. And we look at that in relation to blood glucose and then things like body fat, waist circumference, and we know if there's insulin resistance going on. So if cholesterol levels were raised and insulin resistance was apparent, then you'd be thinking, I need to do something about this, because that's when cholesterol can start to do some damage. But if you've got insulin resistance levels are looking really low, and then you might need to look at.
So it's not just about losing weight. So if somebody is feeling like perhaps they are happy with their weight, but they've got those other signs that perhaps their metabolic health isn't that good, they're not sleeping very well, or they've got aches and pains, or what would you recommend for them? Are there different programs that you run here that will work for different types of people?
Yeah, absolutely. We find when people come, everyone is coming really because they want to reset their health in some way, but they've had very different health journeys. So it's about finding what is the right program for them. And your point about weight, we absolutely, a lot of people who come here, you know, they're a weight they're very happy with, they're a lean weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their metabolic health is balanced. And we have plenty of people, for example, who are really struggling with their sleep, or who have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, but they're very lean. It doesn't go hand in hand. That's why we keep coming back to what is going on inside. What's your metabolic health? So yeah, absolutely. So our metabolic health program is one, I think, which will help anyone to optimise their health. So this is the one that people come on if maybe they've had a really stressful time recently and they haven't been able to focus on themselves and they really need to reset. It's the one that people will come on perhaps if their health markers are starting to deteriorate, if the blood pressure is rising, or they've been told some of their results are sort of not where they want to be. Perhaps if one of their family or friends had a bit of a health scare, so it's made them realise, do you know what, I want to look after me, it's time to look after me. Those are some of the reasons that people will come on that retreat. And then we have our pre-diabetes retreat. So this is a program for people who either have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, or they have these signs of insulin resistance. So they're sort of aware that maybe their metabolic health is deteriorating. Very often, people who come on that one will have a family history of type 2 diabetes, and they don't want to accept that that's going to happen to them. They know that they can take control and do something about it. So that's pre-diabetes. We have our menopause program. So this is for women either for perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. So really spanning that hormonal journey and giving them tools and resources to take control of how this journey impacts them. And we look at all of these through a metabolic health lens, because if you can balance metabolic health, your metabolic health journey is going to be so much more improved. There's really clear links. And then we've got some specialist programs. So we've got the Type 1 program, Conquering Food Addiction program, and coming next year, Men's Health and Fertility.
Excellent. So that's great. So what about if people can't come for a whole week? Because it is quite a commitment to come for a week. For me, it was fantastic because it meant that I could just let somebody do everything for me, and I felt that was a really great way to kickstart getting into a great routine. But if you can't do that, do you have something that people can do perhaps virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you say, our programme at the moment is you come and stay for 6 nights at the beginning, and then we support you for a year.
And do it. You must do it because it is fantastic.
And it's just being in a different environment, isn't it? It's being away from normal stresses,
yes,
from all the shops, all of that, and just being somewhere different. But it's not feasible for everyone, and particularly I think we find sometimes around menopause age it can be difficult to take that time out. So we're developing our virtual Combe Grove at Home programme, which is going to be released in September of this year.
Fantastic.
It's really exciting, and what we are doing is bringing our team and bringing Combe Grove into people's homes. So they're going to have as similar as possible experience. They're going to have a starter kit delivered them with their own kit so they feel like they're at Combe Grove.
Fantastic.
And we're going to be coming to them and supporting them on their own journey.
And how will that work? Will you have like online teachings? Will you have live sessions?
It's a combination, but what we do not want it to be, we don't want it to be that there's an app on their phone and they watch a video. We want it to be us supporting people one-to-one, so they'll have their own dedicated coach who will be guiding them through their journey. The other element we want to bring to people is the community element, because that's so important.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. For me, I mean, that was another worry about coming, was, what are the other people who are on the retreat going to be like? And they were all wonderful, very, similar to me, same kind of issues and worries that I had. And we had a lovely group, and in fact, also, every member of staff was just so helpful and welcoming. We just really, we didn't want to go home, we felt like. And if you can bring that into your virtual programme as well, I think that would be fantastic. And we still have a WhatsApp group where we message each other, how are you getting on, what have you been doing? So as well as having the year's support from you afterwards, we've got the support of each other to keep going as well.
Yeah.
So if somebody is struggling a little bit, which, one of the members has said, I lost my way a little bit, and we've all sort of chipped in and said, this is what I'm doing and this is how this is working, so that we can help each other as well.
That's really good that you've got that, and it is what's happening. And so we wanted to bring that community element to it. So when people join the programme, they'll be part of a very small group in the same way they are here. And so they'll have group sessions, they can build those connections, because I think often people feel very alone.
Yes.
With their health concerns.
Yes.
So like I say, if you can share that, you realise that other people are in a similar situation, and you can share what's working and the challenges. So there's individual support, you're going to have regular reviews where you have real time. You're going to have an hour with your nutritionist, so somebody who's really going to hear you and hold you. And then you've also got your group support running right through. So we're guiding you, we're really guiding you through every step of the journey.
Brilliant. I will put links to everything down in the description box that we've talked about, the different programmes, and you have an online timetable of each different programme as well that you're running, don't you? So to summarise really, is there anything else you want to tell us about Combe Grove, or why we should choose coming to Combe Grove over, say, just going to a health spa or a weight loss facility? What are the real benefits? I mean, I know because I've been, but explain to us what the real benefits are of coming here.
So Combe Grove is about learning about your health, learning about you, and about taking control of your health. So you absolutely will get benefits that you would if you went to, for example, a health spa. You will get that relaxation, but you're then going to learn how to transform your health, how to reset. The big difference for me is that Combe Grove is based around a charitable foundation. So everything we're doing in order to make a difference and to reach more people. So one of our charitable goals is to share what we're doing with our local community and beyond. So that's, for example, why we do our webinars. Another really important part of what we're doing is we want to be able to offer the opportunity for people to come on our programs who wouldn't necessarily be able to reach them. So as soon as we are able to, we're going to be offering bursaries and working with doctors in the local area for them to refer people to our bursaries. So it is set up with the intention of optimising metabolic health and helping with public health as much as it possibly can.
Brilliant. And I think the other thing that's great about it as well is when you look at the programme and you look at the cost of the programme, that's actually for a whole year. It's not just the time that you're at the retreat. So every 6 weeks or so I get my follow-up with my nutritionist, I get my blood tests done again. And so I've always got somebody there that I can talk to if I've got an issue, or if something's come up and I've got a question, or I said to my nutritionist recently, Adam, who's lovely by the way, I said to him, I'm stable, but the weight's not coming down. So he's given me some tactics now to move that on. Now that I've got this far and I understand what I'm eating and I know what I'm doing, how do I now move on to the next stage?
Yeah, absolutely. This is not about 1 week. This is about the rest of your life.
Yes.
And absolutely, you can learn an awful lot in a week, and you can really fast track resetting. But it's about then navigating and translating that into home. And it's about having somebody there with you. When something happens, when life gets stressful, or Christmas, for example,
yes.
and about holidays, and then it's about helping. Right, so how do I feel really confident going into this so I can enjoy this, and then when I come back, just getting back on track with what I'm doing. And it's so easy for a holiday to completely derail and take you away from where you want to head for months and months and months. It doesn't take much. If you've got somebody alongside you to guide you through those things, then you learn how to navigate those things forevermore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because somebody said to me the other day about diet, and I said, this isn't a diet, this is my lifestyle, and this is how it's going to be going forward.
And I think we're so used to thinking in those terms, in this, diet or all or nothing.
Yes.
And something we talk about an awful lot here is, getting away from that all or nothing and thinking about this as something amazing, that you are nourishing yourself and looking for opportunities for how you can nourish yourself. And we can sort of start to reframe, and it's one of the parts of mindset we talk about, but it just makes everything feel easy, enjoyable, maintainable.
Exactly, because if it's not those things, you're not going to keep doing it.
No.
This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for all that information. It's been really, really brilliant. Is there anything else you want to say that we haven't covered?
I think the only thing I'd like to say is that don't think because of where you are and because of what's happened before that that's how it has to be going forward. You can rewrite your health story whenever you like.
Yeah, that is so true.
There's a huge amount of hope, and the things that we have talked about and the things that we cover are powerful.